think it's hard to follow Sarah on such a highly prepared and outstanding presentation on oral exams. I have prepared some slides, but I think I can make without. And I just can give you my experience over the past 26 years or so on examinations on different topics. As I have written in my outline, you might have read it, I consider oral examinations as an essential part in the academic education system. And I view it as an essential step towards an academic discussion that scientists are often engaged in. And is one task and one goal of the scientific education to bring the students at that stage. And the oral exams are just a test or provide an opportunity to try it out, this discussion. I have done oral exams in different topics, but according also to this scheme, these oral exams tend to be more frequent towards the end of the academic education. In biology, for example, we have an end exam that is the final point of the master degree, and that is an oral examination. And it represents so the final point in this education system. And same is true for a PhD exam, where we also have an oral examination that is the end point of this part in this educational process. So I think we have to, this role is very important, and it is not so much the mark that is then applied or given to the student, but rather the process itself of the oral examination that makes the important point. So in that context, I noticed over my now more than 20 years of experience that it was hard to fail an oral examination for the student. There's some cases for sure, but it was difficult not to pass. The students could get not optimal marks, but failing was rare. And this is probably also due to the style. I was examining orally together with my colleagues. We were always two in the room and examining and evaluating the students. So what are the tools in oral examination? First, I consider it as important to have a discussion. That is the main point, oral. And you have drawings and blackboards. These are the tools, and there is not much more than that. We cannot expect high-level drawings in such a stressful situation for the student. One tool I always used was to let the student choose the entry point of the exam and start from there. Because this generates, from my perspective, a system of trust that you give the student the freedom, where would you like to start? Of course, they think then they will start at the area they know the best. But from there, you can then try to expand and try to find how they can connect to other topics in that field you are examining. That was, from my perspective, always very helpful. I also noticed that it is also a cultural thing how students react to these oral examinations. In some cultures, they could hardly, they were not aware of that system. And others, for them, it was easy to use it. The final tool I would like to mention is give immediate feedback at the end of the exam. I think it is very important that we have to tell the student immediately after the exam how he or she performed. because this is then still fresh and it will not change. This is, I view it differently from Sarah. When you look at your notes, yes, you might change a little bit, but the overall evaluation will be the same because you still have it fresh in your memory. And therefore, I think, I know it's against the rules that you give immediately a mark, you tell them the mark, but I think it is important in creating a trustful environment also by telling them at the end how their performance was. Then at the finally, what are then the goals of such oral examinations? I think we have to evaluate conceptual and academic thinking. I do not want to evaluate in an oral exam what the student knows, but how deep the knowledge goes. How can they connect the different things? The pros and the cons of the oral exams, I think they require trust, that the students have to trust the examiner, that they evaluate them correctly. It is extremely difficult to have an exact marking because we have moving goals, so to speak. As an examiner, I can try to find the strong points of the students. And at the same time, I can also try to find the weak points of the students. So I can choose the direction. This is difficult to handle. And I always try to find the strong points of the students and not the weak points. Try to find what they know and not to find out what they don't know. So these are the pros and the cons. And in discussions I had with the students, talking about sense or nonsense of oral exams, I often told them that when they apply for a job, they go for job interviews. And this is the very same situation as in an oral exam. They will be examined by their future boss, how they perform under stress, how much they know, how they can present themselves. So oral exams are not only important in these academic settings from my point of view, they also prepare the students of a situation like job interviews where they're also examined. And when I told this to the students, they start to think about this, and many of them changed their view about oral exams. So that was my point.